Thank you, David, for that. Usually when it says Texas A&M, there's a little bit louder whoop from the crowd. There we go. Whether I graduated from A&M or not, I put it on my bio because it's a good way to start a presentation to hear something from the crowd. I wanted to follow up. Well, I also want to thank Chad. Chad, appreciate the opportunity to come to visit today. Appreciate the opportunity for everybody that's here. Thank you for your time. Also, Jeremy, appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and then put some information on the website about what I wanted to talk today. It's great to see everybody here. It's really great to be back in person, to meet in person, and without masks. I think there may be one or so that I've seen in here, and that's really great. So maybe all of us should check in 3 or 4 days, and we'll see how this works out for everybody. I appreciate what Jim had to say, not only about San Jacinto, but about safety. From San Jacinto's standpoint, this is a beautiful facility, and Freeport LNG actually has marine terminal or pilot simulations that we do down here, so we are a partner with them and appreciate what they have. And when he talks about ladder safety, that's something that comes to mind. How many people have either been painting a house or put up Christmas lights and have either reached way outside to paint or have actually moved ladders by bouncing them against the side of your house? So that certainly wouldn't happen at work. So what I would like to do today is talk about Freeport LNG a little bit. Just to start on the company background, we were created in 2002, so we're a relatively small, relatively young private company. We went into business in 2002 to be a regas terminal. At that point in time, there was the concern that the United States didn't have enough natural gas, and so LNG was going to come from overseas to the United States. We were going to vaporize that and put it into pipelines to be delivered into the United States grid. So we had all those approvals, started construction in 2005, and we began operations in 2008. And if you're familiar with the oil and gas industry, you know that shale gas was discovered, or at least the technology to extract it in roughly 2008. So for our regas terminal, we never vaporized and sent natural gas into the U.S. pipelines for purpose. We did it just enough to do the performance tests and start up the facility. So with the advent of shale gas and just now the significant amount of gas that's available in the United States, we decided to turn the facility around and make it into a liquefaction facility to take natural gas out of the United States, out of Texas, liquefy it, and then export it. So a little bit about our evolution. Again, in 2008, we are a regasification facility. We had 7 vaporizer trains. The main thing to see is we were going to be able to vaporize and put into the U.S. market 2 billion cubic feet of gas per day. So that is a significant amount of production. That is roughly the size of our liquefaction facility now for export. 2019 is when we started up our liquefaction facility. We have 3 5 million tons per annum trains. They're just identical production trains, facilities. Again, we can now liquefy 2.2 billion cubic feet per day. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we are an all-motor drive facility. We do not have turbine drive compression, so we are a significant consumer of power, and then that also has significant advantages from an environmental and emission standpoint. Some of our other facilities that we have, common facilities, we have 3 full containment liquefied natural gas LNG storage tanks. Each of those are 160,000 cubic meters. That's about the size of the ships that we receive, so about 160,000 cubic meters goes on a ship. That's about 3 billion cubic feet of gas. So that's on the order of a ship every day and a half or so. Pretreatment and compression facilities. We actually have 2 facilities separated by a 10-mile pipeline. Our pretreatment facilities take natural gas off the U.S. pipelines, which is what you would get at your home if you have home heating or your home stove. That natural gas is not clean enough for us to be able to liquefy it. It might have a bit of water, carbon dioxide, other contaminants that we must remove before we condense the gas, because we operate at about minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and so everything tends to freeze if it's not supposed to be in there. We also now have started with, we are working with Linde on a helium extraction facility to be able to extract and then liquefy helium. Helium is actually in short supply. If you go to Party City, the price of helium for balloons and for birthday parties has gone up fairly significantly, and it's just not around. But in the condensing of natural gas, if you take 2 billion cubic feet of gas and you're taking out all the impurities and then liquefying the majority of it, there is a way to concentrate and recover the helium. We have an underground gas storage cavern facility, about 4 billion cubic feet of gas that we put in a salt dome cavern that we can use for operations, inject and withdraw natural gas. So that helps us out on our just our operations and how we manage volumes of gas, either when we have facilities go down or put it into the cavern when it's hot during the day, and then when it cools off at night, try to run higher amounts of gas. Have a condensate and storage and trucking facility. In our treatment of the gas, we actually collect some natural gas liquids, butanes, natural gasoline, some other things that we extract and then market in the area. So this is just a map of our integrated Freeport LNG facilities. We are down in Lake Jackson, Freeport area. That is certainly very much an industrial complex, industrial area. Dow is very big in that area. BASF, there are a lot of other very large companies in the area. So it is a sophisticated area. People know and understand the oil and gas business. So from an environmental standpoint, they are very sophisticated and knowledgeable about what you're doing in your facilities. It is very important to have a good relationship with the communities. This is a picture of our liquefaction facility, and you can see it explains it a little bit better. In the middle of the picture, there are the three, what we call our liquefaction trains, LNG trains. Our fourth one is the one that we are proposing to build that's down here at the bottom. You see we have our shipping, our berth for 2 ships, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then there's a box up there also for a barge dock. We are working on a project to be able to have barges come in to take LNG out to markets for trucking, for cruise ships. Cruise ships now are getting to where they use LNG for their fuel. So it's transportation. Maybe sometime Amazon trucks will start showing up with LNG in them. So that's an opportunity that we will have in the future. Our storage tanks and marine facilities, you can see the storage tanks in the background and the marine facilities up front. We can handle 2 LNG ships at a time. We can handle the largest ships that are in the world for LNG. Those are typically don't make it to the U.S. Gulf Coast, because typically now the ships that come to the U.S. Gulf Coast are either just going to Europe or they're going to go through the expanded Panama Canal. And the largest ships that are called QMax from Qatari, the maximum ones that can come from Qatar, cannot fit through the Panama Canal, even the expanded one. We have very favorable logistics for our marine terminal, from deep water where the pilots board the ship to bring a ship in. We can have her at our dock in Allfast in right around an hour. So the transit time is very short, and that's significant to be able to bring ships in and out. And we work very closely with the Brasport pilots for being able to bring in ships to do nighttime transit and do other transits, because these ships are large enough that when they come in, and it shuts down the intercoastal harbor, and it shuts down the Freeport Harbor Channel with those ships coming in. We can do dual loading. two docks at the same time. And then you can see where the barge dock area will be on the intercoastal waterway that we will be building. So what are some of the strategic advantages that Freeport LNG has as a company? The first one is location. You've heard location, location, location. Now, obviously, any liquefaction facility is going to be located on a gulf. You got to have water for the large ships to be able to come in. But what is strategic about where Freeport LNG and a lot of other facilities, and I'll show you those in a minute, is how we are connected to the pipelines that can bring natural gas to our facility. You see all the basins, the Burnett, the Permian Basin, Eagleford, Haynesville, where gas, and in particular shale gas, has been discovered and is being produced. That pipeline network in Texas is significant, and it all kind of comes down to the Gulf Coast. So we have significant amount of pipeline availability. We are in the U.S. Gulf Coast, which has very good marine logistics, easy transit to bring a ship into our facility. And there are a lot of other pipelines that are available in the future. Our second strategic advantage would really be our contracts. We have signed 20-year liquefaction tolling agreements with our customers, have multiple customers. What we do as a company is we provide a service for a fee. You sign up with us for 20 years, you bring us your natural gas, we will liquefy it for a fee, and then we will put it on a ship that you arrange to take that LNG where you want to go. So we don't take market risk of natural gas prices, and we don't take supply and market risk of LNG. We provide a service for a fee. And so that business model is different than some companies. Most companies have that as a base piece of their business, but a lot of other companies have their own marketing arms, and we do that a little bit, but really not that much. And then our third strategic advantage, we talk about our customers, and you'll see a list of those. Osaka Gas and JERA out of Japan, certainly BP, people are aware of Total. They're some of the largest players of LNG in the world, and so they are our customers. And again, we have a very conservative financial model in how we make a living and what we do, and we are highly leveraged. We've borrowed either through debt or equity and then refinanced over $30 billion. About half of that is what it costs to build facilities, and then about half of that is in the refinancing. But we take our contracts with our customers, an EPC contract, and the 20-year contract that we have with our customers, and we go to a bank and borrow a lot of money against that. So where does Freeport LNG fit in terms of global liquefaction capacity? Right now, we currently rank 7th in the world in terms of a site capacity to liquefy natural gas. And with Train 4 as an expansion, we will move up a bit. But as you can see, we are dwarfed by the Qataris. Everybody in the world is just dwarfed by the Qataris. And they have now said that they are going to expand to over 100 million tons per annum. So you're talking about being a significant player in LNG worldwide. There are other ones in this area that are on here. Sabine Pass, Cheniere. If you're familiar with Cheniere, Cheniere has been highly successful in Louisiana and in Corpus. And so they are one of the, as a company combined, they are much larger than we are even. So our expansion project and the progress that we have on that. We want to add a 4th train, and that would be another 5 million tons per annum of LNG. That's about 750 million cubic feet per day. So that would put us up to almost 3 billion cubic feet per day of gas. That's a lot of gas. We have all of our authorizations from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, from PHMSA, Department of Energy, to be able to export that gas. We don't have a customer yet. We are in the process of talking to multiple customers about that 4th train and to be able to expand. We are in the process of bidding out our EPC contract right now. to be able to award that contract before the end of the year, and hopefully to make a final investment decision into this year, early next year, and then it takes about 4 years to construct the facility. So what are the market options? You can see, again, where the U.S. Gulf Coast is strategically situated to be able to deliver LNG anywhere around the world, either through the Panama Canal to get to Asia now or into the Europe area. And you see the transit times for ships to be able to reach those locations. 21 days for a ship to get from Freeport LNG or the U.S. Gulf Coast to Asia. So on a round trip, that's 40 days, about a month and a half. So lining up your shipping is very critical because it's going to be a while before that ship comes back. Where does the LNG go? Here's some graphs and charts on Freeport LNG and where the LNG that our customers take has gone. We've now loaded over 450 ships that have come out of our terminal since July of 2019 when we commissioned and started up our initial train. 34 different countries all over the world, Asia, South America, Europe, just, the Middle East. Surprisingly, LNG goes into that area as well. But the third bullet point on here is one that's what's fairly significant to consider. And when you take into account what's happening around the world, it really makes some sense. In 2021, 70% of our Freeport LNG's cargoes were delivered into the Asian market. Now, that doesn't seem all that amazing considering that we have SK, which is Korea, and we have Japanese customers. So a lot of their LNG is going to their customers, or to their countries. Japan doesn't have any domestic production, so they are all nuclear, and a lot of that's been shut down. So they are significant importers of LNG. But in 2022, so far, 80% of our cargoes have been delivered into the European markets. So that's a significant change in where the LNG is going. And really, I mean, that's just because of the unfortunate circumstances in Ukraine and Russia and the desire for European countries to get off of their reliance on Russia gas that has changed those dynamics. And those will continue to change and evolve over time. I talked about other terminals and projects. Here is a picture of United States, Canada, Mexico, where you can see all the significant potential and existing liquefaction facilities for export of natural gas out of the greater United States, let's call it. Certainly on the Gulf Coast, East Coast, West Coast, Alaska. Alaska is where LNG liquefaction actually started in the United States in Kenai, Alaska. So there are a lot of existing and proposed projects in the United States, in greater United States. But if you look at the Gulf Coast, that is where the significant action is. If you look at Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, all in really in Texas and kind of the Texas-Louisiana border, there are a significant number of projects that are either in operation or have permits and are just finishing their commercial arrangements and potentially are even under construction or are in the permitting process to be able to in the future build. But it takes a long time. I mean, to get permits and then construct is probably 8 to 10 years. So it's a significant undertaking. So this idea that LNG and liquefaction facilities in the U.S. Gulf Coast are going to relieve the pressure for European gas overnight is just not true. So what would be the message to the market? Again, the first bullet point in the top chart, if you look at this, the United States is home to over 30 different liquefaction projects that are looking to develop over 250 million tons of new capacity. But less than a handful of those are shovel-ready, that have all their permits and that they're available to go out and construct. And some of those are greenfield. Some of them are brownfield, like ourselves, where we can do an expansion. So we already have our marine docks, our tanks, a control room, a flare. and there are others like us that can get to the market a little faster. Greenfields have all of that infrastructure that they are still going to have to build. So you can see that what is available right now to be constructed and to bring LNG onto the market in the next 4 years or so is still fairly limited. Pricing for the long-term LNG contracts is defined really by financing and construction. Unless you're an ExxonMobil or a large company like that that's doing LNG in the U.S. that brings their own cash to the market, everything is pretty well financed, and then you have your construction costs. And so those have got to match up with commercial markets, or in our case, our tolling fees. And it takes a significant time to be able to pay those out. That's why our contracts are 20 years. Companies now are looking at trying to do contracts for 10 years or 15 years, but that requires additional risk and additional financing type arrangements. Henry Hub indexed LNG prices are what the world is kind of looking for in terms of U.S. natural gas. Typically, LNG prices are priced on crude oil because that is a worldwide fungible energy source, and so crude oil can be priced worldwide. What has made the U.S. attractive from a LNG standpoint is that U.S. natural gas is not tied to crude oil prices directly. We have our own U.S. natural gas market, our own U.S. gas pricing, Henry Hub, and so to be able to take that gas price, which really, when you compare around the world, is not nearly as volatile as crude oil or gas in other parts of the world, and you liquefy it, so there's a fee for that, and then you ship it, you can take it to other parts of the world, and it's not going to be nearly as volatile as LNG has been historically. Stability of Henry Hub, again, mentioning that if you look on the chart on the left, you can see what Brent crude, which is a worldwide pricing mechanism for crude oil, and then LNG is tied to that, is those types of prices versus where the natural gas price in the United States has been. Then you add liquefaction, shipping, and other parts to get it, vaporization to get it to other parts of the world. And then you can look on the right-hand side to, again, see the volatility that has been in the LNG markets worldwide. TTF is a pricing mechanism in Europe that people are aware of. JKM is an Asian price for LNG. But you can see natural gas in the United States and how we price things is much less volatile. What are the macro benefits of Freeport LNG? We have a total economic input of about $5 billion per year. That's $100 billion over our 20-year contract lifetime. Now, again, the economic output of that is primarily the sale of that LNG worldwide by our customers. But that sale of LNG from natural gas produced in the United States is about 1% or $6 billion a year against the U.S. trade deficit. And that's us. And there's Cheniere, and there's a lot of other producers and liquefiers in the United States. Labor force, 24,000 to 30,000 direct and indirect jobs are required to be able to produce 2 billion cubic feet of natural gas a day. I mean, that's a lot of exploration, production, gathering, transportation, and then getting the gas to us for liquefaction. So that is a significant number of jobs that are associated with that amount of gas production. We peaked at over 8,000 construction jobs when we were building trains 1, 2, and 3, and we have 230 plus operating employee jobs at the site, plus significant number of contractors. Emissions. Again, we are a motor drive facility. We have 9 75 megawatt motors that drive our refrigeration compression. Most of the time, those are by turbine drive, and that reduces our emissions compared to a turbine drive facility by about 90%. So that is a significant reduction. Why did we do that? Well, we are in Brazoria County. Brazoria County is adjacent to Harris County. Harris County is a non-attainment area from an emissions standpoint. So really the only way that we would be able to build a facility is to make it what's called ELNG, electric LNG. But we are the largest and the only one operating now in the world that is ELNG. And a lot of other people are now beginning to look at that as well. If you look at the graph on the right-hand side, this is interesting. Well, you'll say, okay, well, you're getting your power from somewhere. I mean, somebody is generating that power, and that's true. We get it out of ERCOT. But if you look at ERCOT's power supply certainly is still heavily natural gas and a little bit of nuclear, and you can see that coal is coming down. But they are a significant supplier of renewable power, wind and solar, roughly 30%, 29%. So not only are we not running turbines and generating emissions ourselves, but where we buy power comes off of the ERCOT grid, and 30% of that is renewable. So we believe we stand in pretty good shape in terms of environmental emissions. So now, when February of, when was it? Was it 2021 or 2020? I can't remember, when it had the real cold spell. And then certainly here recently, with all the hot weather, you've been hearing about ERCOT quite a bit. And so I found a map. Do you actually really know what ERCOT is relative to the United States? And I didn't. And this is a pretty significant pictorial of where ERCOT stands relative to the power grid of the whole United States. There are really only 3 power connection areas or grids. And ERCOT is not even all of Texas. It is a part of Texas, but certainly it is a significant part of Texas. And we are one of the largest, if not the largest, consumers of power in the ERCOT grid. So you will read about the issues with connecting ERCOT to other interconnects, other power grids, and moving power around. Because back when we had the winter freeze, it was interesting to see that how significantly different the price of natural gas was in the ERCOT market and over in Louisiana, there, because of just the gas supply and the ability for those larger transmission systems to move power around. So procurement, wanted to certainly talk about procurement while we're here, and we procure about $15 million per month in goods and services that come to our facility. We try to do as much of that as we can locally. We are in a good area, the greater Houston area. It is an industrial area. There are a lot of suppliers, service providers in the area, and so we try to partner up locally as best we can. Now, we still have to do worldwide and global procurement because of where our equipment may have been manufactured and just some of the criticality of that. And we still have warranties in place. And so we go where the warranties can still be maintained. But we do have a system to qualify new vendors and suppliers and providers. And we have a way to do that. We have you can send us some information and we review that and are adding suppliers when it makes sense. One of the things I would tell you that we look at is cybersecurity controls, how to communicate with vendors and suppliers, whether it's invoicing, POs, whatever, electronically, and be able to do that cyberly secure is becoming very important to us. Now, our major projects, such as Train 4, they have significant spend. Obviously, those are multi-billion-dollar projects. But that spend really goes through our EPC contractors. We do lump sum turnkey contracts, fixed price type contracts with our contractors because of the risk allocation that we want to have as a company. So we have an approved vendor list for Train 4. We will be duplicating a significant amount of the equipment that we already have. But bulks, pipe, concrete, structural steel, pots and pans in terms of vessels and things like that, we have multiple vendors that can provide those. Cable tray, all of those red rags, consumables, all of those. But those are typically, and the vast majority, are purchased by our EPC contractors. We have had supply issues. Those generally have been in availability of electronic components, those components that go into equipment, and that equipment can be as small as control valves and things like that that you wouldn't really think about. But electronic components are one, and then also specialty commodities, stainless steel, particular types of pipe and materials, cable that have copper in it, fiber optic cable. There's just a lot of those kind of specialty commodities that are difficult. Shipping challenges, everybody has those now. We are well aware of that. How we have tried to address that is we carry, as any company would, a significant amount of inventory in our maintenance budget and in our warehouses. And so we have adjusted our max mins up. So we carry more mins, we carry more maxes. We just have a lot more inventory on site than we had originally anticipated. We enter into agreements with certain providers, critical providers, for us to pay for them to carry inventory for us so that we don't have it in our warehouse, but they guarantee that they can get it within a day or two. So those type of arrangements, we work with people to provide materials that we need, and we pay basically like an option or a storage fee or something on it like that, and then don't really have to buy it until we pull it out. But we know that we could drive somewhere and look at it and put our hands on it if we need it. Pricing. Everybody's familiar with the way construction material prices and all have been going through the roof. Our steel prices are up 65% from our original EPC contract. So there's a lot of steel in the liquefaction facility. Those prices have really gone up. That's nothing new to people in this room. One thing I would point out that is a hurdle, and I feel for the EPC contractors and people that are bidding on work, bid validity dates are just unbelievably short. You're getting 3-day validities. EPC contractor that's got 6 months to put a multi-billion-dollar bid together gets a bid from a supplier of rotating equipment, a major turbine, and that turbine is whatever. It's $100 million. The delivery is 42 months, and this price and schedule is good for 3 days. Let us know. So how does an EPC contractor bid something like that on a lump sum turnkey basis? Well, it's contingency. It's contingency that we know that we will have to pay for. Some of it may be used, some of it may not. We're also seeing inflation affecting labor rates now. First it was materials, and now really it's starting to creep into labor rates as well. The availability of crafts and craft workers. There are a lot of people that have left or gone to different industries and just are not available now. So construction material prices are something that we also are struggling with as a company, as I know everybody in here is as well. And lastly, our community involvement. We want to be good neighbors and good stewards and good citizens of the places where our employees live. And that's really in Brazoria County and in Houston. Less so in Houston, that's our headquarters. But the majority of our employees and their children go to school in the Brazoria County area. And so we want those folks to have access to good health care and the availability of good health facilities in there. And we're an industrial area, so it's very good in that area. We want them to have availability of good education. And that is not only for our employees' children to get a good education, but those students eventually will become employees that Freeport LNG would like to hire. And so we work with the universities and even the high schools down there in their education. First responders, that's one of the other areas that we try to focus on. And then what we've gotten into the last few years is really social diversity and awareness. What can we do to help those folks, not only with our time, our money, but also with our time in terms of the things that we do as a company, whether it's beach cleanup. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if it's going to go. The activities that we do, whether it's beach cleanup or going into Houston for the peanut butter loading that we can do to go to facility. And so United Way is another big one that we do. So again, we just want to be a part of the community and where our employees live. So that's all I had for today. Thank you very much. Here it is. There we go. Beach cleanup. And some of the other things, tree planting that we've done in Houston, some of the other areas. So again, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the opportunity to come today.